Hello guys! In this video we are taking a closer look at drawing tigers. Tiger is probably not the easiest animal to draw, but they look super cool, so I thought I would try to give you all my best tips on how to improve your tiger drawings. You'll see that I'm not a professional either, so I think this video will be a great learning experience for all of us. So before we get started, I've gathered quite many reference pictures for myself. I personally like to use Pinterest for this, but you could just Google images of tigers and find pictures that pleases your eye. Whenever I'm drawing an animal like this and trying to make it look realistic, I'm always taking reference from a real picture. I think it's essential to get all the shapes and small details right. And if you feel weird or like that's cheating for some reason, trust me, everyone else does it too, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That being said, let's get right into the first drawing, and here I chose this cute, surprised looking tiger, and we are only gonna draw his face. I'm walking you through 4 different versions of a tiger in this video so that we can really get some basics and even more advanced stuff down, like some different angles and even facial expressions. So the start of a sketch is always the most daunting part. I like to start with some very rough circles, just loosely figuring out the size, and then I'm starting to define some of the bigger lines and shapes of the head. When you're looking at your reference picture, instead of seeing all the endless details, try to first look past those and find some bigger shapes and almost break the picture down to these geometric shapes that you can start to replicate on your paper. We can worry about all the details later, and please remember that using your eraser in the whole sketching part is totally normal. If it makes you feel any better, I have to erase and redraw something every time I'm sketching an animal, so yeah. So it's really not about making perfect lines and shapes in this point, but we are slowly trying to work our way there. I actually like to call this stage the ugly sketching phase, because in my opinion, every drawing has this ugly phase where you don't believe it's ever gonna turn out right. Everything looks weird and out of place. So if your tiger is looking like a potato in this point, that's about right. So fighting our way through this phase is the first challenge we have to accomplish, and when you feel like you've started to get some of the basic shapes on the paper, I usually like to choose a point from where I'm starting to darken the sketch and start to make everything more detailed. I kind of locked onto the nose and the eyes first here and used those almost as the anchor points to measure the other details. It might even help to draw a line to the center of the face so that you can use that as your guide. The eyes are often the hardest part for many people, and I felt like, especially while drawing these tigers, you really have to trust the process with the eyes. When you first draw the initial shapes, they are gonna look weird, and that's totally okay because a big part of the eyes is actually all the details around them. It's kind of like when we draw people, the eyebrows make the world of a difference in human face, and without them, the face and the facial expression would look so weird. So when you're studying your tiger picture, pay attention to all the lines and dots around the eyes, and you'll start to notice that they have very distinct details around them, like the white areas and small black stripes. After getting all those small details on the paper as well, I assure you that your eyes will look much better. Every now and then it's good to kinda find some measure points from your reference picture. So for example, does your eyes line up with the placement of the ears, or is the width of the nose compared to the eyes same as in the picture? If you feel like something doesn't look right in your drawing in this point, the problem is very likely somewhere in the measurements and relations between different elements. It might even be a good idea to take a small break in this point and come back to the drawing with fresh eyes, because you really get blind to your own work fast. So I think that's mainly the first pencil sketch, and now I'm quickly intensifying some of the lines with my black pen. This is a very daunting part as well, since you're not able to erase these lines anymore, but adding the black also gives the drawing a lot more depth. I didn't color these first sketches because I wanted to really focus on the line work, and I think especially tiger is an animal that really benefits from the coloring part, so that automatically means that if you can create a black and white sketch that still looks like a tiger, you're definitely on a right track. When I was progressing with this drawing, I almost felt like the more stripes and details I added to the face, the more it started to look like a real tiger. So definitely paying attention to the sizes and especially the angles of the stripes really helps in my opinion. The stripes are almost a way to create the shapes of the head, so definitely paying attention to how they are showing in the picture, how wide they look in certain areas is a very good indication of the overall head shape. I know I'm not breaking every small detail apart in this video, because that's not even how I really look at the drawings. For me, it's more about just following the reference and trying to almost shape everything in a way that it starts to look okay. I feel like there's no exact correct way to draw anything, because all these small things eventually look a little bit different if you turn the face or if you have a different facial expression. So I think it's almost more about just finding those small details that look the same in every picture. So this surprised round-eyed tiger was our first sketch in this video, and now let's raise the difficulty level a bit by drawing a lot more intense facial expression next. So I chose this tiger that has its mouth open because I rarely draw animals with expressions like these, and it just felt like a good challenge. So we are starting in a very similar way, and right from the start we realize that many things are different from the first one. The face is now turned to the right, so we are drawing the tiger from this almost side profile, which means that the head shape will also be a lot different. It might also be a little bit more difficult to find the placement for the eyes, because at least I was really thrown off here first because of the mouth. The mouth felt really big in the beginning, but surprisingly it started to come together after adding the teeth and other details, so try not to judge your initial sketch too much in the beginning. You can see how the eye shape is much different compared to the first one we drew. In that one, the eyes were really round to create that surprised look, but now we want this tiger to have this angry expression, so the eyes are much more elongated, and that together with the scrunchy nose gives that angry look to this animal. I really encourage you to pick a few different postures and facial expressions of whatever animal you would like to draw and just see how the process changes for you. I felt like every picture in this video were teaching me something different, and it was just a great sketching practice overall. Also, the stripes will look a little bit different from this angle, so again, just really pay attention to your reference picture and try to follow the correct angles and shapes of the stripes. I added some more darkness again here with my black pen after the pencil sketch was done, and it really helped to finalize the picture again, in my opinion. There's just something about going over everything with the black pen. It just makes everything look so much better and more detailed. Then we have the last black and white sketch that I'm quickly gonna walk through, and this time I wanted to draw this complete side profile from this noble looking tiger. So again, the biggest challenge for me was the shape of the head. I started with very general outlines again and tried to figure out the overall shape and especially the place of the jaw. I think drawing some guidelines for yourself in the beginning is very helpful, even though we will erase all of them later. But in this one, I almost felt like we have to consider the shape of the skull. So it definitely was challenging to find a correct place for the eye and make it look like it's kind of a little bit deeper in the face, if that makes any sense. Also, the sides of the mouth go surprisingly downwards, so definitely pay attention to that, as well as the shape of the cheeks. Then one surprising difficulty in this side profile was the iris of the eye. But if you keep redrawing it a few times, you will eventually find a correct place for it. I usually drew the iris kinda in the middle, and you have to add some shadows to the top part of the eye to make it look realistic. When you just add a black dot in the middle of the eye, it will look a little bit weird in the beginning because the eyes actually have a lot more color to them, and the top part of the eye requires some shadows from the eyelids. So in general, I just trusted my reference picture and tried to keep finding the measurements and details that didn't match with the original picture. Then I just kept refining all of those small things. It's also funny how some things look perfectly fine, pretty much however you draw them. Like when you're drawing the mouth and the nose, small differences to the original picture don't do much difference. But when it comes to the eye area, I feel like just 1 millimeter is all it takes to throw everything off. So we just have to have patience while polishing all those fine details. One thing I want to mention though is just like us humans, all animals are unique and have their own differences. So you can especially see this if you study different pictures. Everything can change from the size of the nose, to the eyes, to the darkness and placements of the stripes, and even to the body structure. So all animals have their unique look, and your drawing doesn't have to be identical with your reference picture either. Sometimes highlighting a certain feature might even make the end result much more interesting. Okay, so now that we have more than enough practice for the sketching, I wanted us to take everything even a step further and this time focus more on the coloring part. So I wanted to draw this tiger that was laying down this time, and it took me quite a while to figure this one out. The posture was definitely more challenging for me since we are now working with the rest of the body as well, and it always brings its own challenges, and we didn't really have much practice for that. To be completely honest, I wasn't happy how the body turned out at all, and you can probably see why in a minute. I definitely rushed through it in the end, but I was actually thinking to make a completely separate video just focusing on different poses. I know that must be difficult for many people, especially when you're trying to draw a more dynamic pose. It's definitely challenging for me as well, so maybe doing a video about it would force me to learn that better as well. So let me know if you have a certain animal in mind you would like to see on a video like that, and I promise to try my best to deliver a video about that you deserve. But yeah, back to this one, so I was definitely struggling here a little bit. I even had to erase my first face sketch completely because it just wasn't going in the direction I wanted. Sometimes starting from a blank canvas is the best way to go, but try to still give the first try a fair chance. But overall, the sketching part is very similar to the previous drawings, so I'm speeding it through quite a lot here. But after we have all the line work ready here, I reached for my watercolors, and now we can start adding a little bit more life to this one. Tigers have a very specific color pattern on their face that is actually very helpful because you can easily create the correct look by just paying a little bit of attention. I started with some dirty oranges and reddish browns and started by adding very light layers of color that we can then start to layer up. I wasn't working with super good watercolor paper here, so the colors didn't come off as vibrant as I'm used to, but it doesn't really matter, everything worked out eventually. The most important thing I would say are the white areas on the face that are placed around the eyes and the lower parts of the face. If it's easier for you, you can even lightly draw out those areas with a pencil so you don't actually get color anywhere that you weren't supposed to. Then another essential point is to start to define the shadows that are the only way for us to add a three-dimensional look to our painting. So start to pay attention to where are the shadowy areas and which places are more hit by the light. After the first very rough layers, I switched to a smaller and more precise brush so I could really start to intensify the colors in those shadowy areas, and I usually do it with these dotting motions so we can also mimic the texture of the fur a bit. You can see me going all the way from these light oranges to pretty dark browns, and in the most shadowy areas under the neck, for example, I even mixed some blue and black to create that much darker shadowy effect. The stripes in the body were pretty challenging because it was hard to find pictures where the tiger was in this exact position, so I was just kind of winging them and trying to make them look pretty much right. I think the coloring part is just a lot of defining all the small details, going over everything multiple times, and then eventually you can start to see your tiger taking its final form. So I hope you got at least some good tips from this video, especially about drawing from a reference picture. I know I didn't go through anything in a very step-by-step manner, but it's actually difficult for me to even teach stuff like that because that's not really what I think about when I'm drawing these animals. For me, it's a lot about just learning how to look at the reference and then translating everything to your own paper. But I guess that's finally it for this in-depth tiger drawing video. I really hope you decide to take this challenge and practice sketching whatever animal you choose. It doesn't have to be a tiger, because you'll surely learn so much from a simple practice like this. If you're new here, I make these types of drawing videos and mainly videos about bullet journaling, so if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely consider subscribing. But yeah, that's it for this time. I hope all of you are having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and see you in my next one. Bye bye!